Okay, thank you for joining us today at Archdesk for our webinar focused on demolition industry. Today we're going to particularly look at some of the challenges the industry is facing, how those are impacting some of the businesses across the sector, and how Archdesk, from our experience working with lots of demolition companies now, we've really sort of honed our solution to meet the requirements of businesses in your industry, but particularly be able to provide solutions to meet the challenges that are being faced and start to eradicate some of the issues that are problematic and having to be lived with at present. So look, today going to give a brief update on, or a little bit of focus on, the demolition industry as it sits today, some of tomorrow's trends in technology and way of working that is coming into this space tomorrow and beyond, and then an overview of some of the common challenges that the industry is facing today and in the future. And then I'll focus on three particular issues that seem to really be hurting businesses across the sector and industry. I can then hopefully be able to highlight how Archdesk as a business and as a solution can help address those issues, give you an introduction to us as a business and what we do, and then hopefully be able to give you a little view at the end of our solution and software in action to show you and give you a bit of a feel for how we are looking to address some of those issues and how usability of the platform is, etc. And then hopefully after this, if you're interested, we could set up fallout sessions and meetings to perhaps have a discussion with myself or one of our many consultants to sit down with you and really understand what your problems are as a business, what issues you're facing and how you're currently working, and we can explain how we can help and bring huge improvements into some areas of your business, we hope, and really drive your industry forward, particularly allowing you to focus on growth as a business, work with the confidence that things are being done properly, and start to hopefully drive your projects to be delivered on time and in budget, which is always the big challenge. And make things a little bit more profitable for your demolition business. So the industry today. The industry overall is on the rise. There is more work. It is slowly improving in that respect. But as you can see from that big statistic, and we'll cover this a little bit later in the presentation, but one of the big challenges is, although there is more work, profits have fallen. So there's an issue there around profitability of the work that's out there. A big thing that was announced in June, July time, is particularly the UK demolition framework that's currently out there to tender, not just for the big guys, but this work will fall down to the tier twos and hopefully the SMEs in the industry, so everybody gets a bit of work from this framework. So things are looking positive, but a challenge is certainly around making sure that although there is more work to be got at, it needs to be profitable, of course. So some of the trends going into tomorrow: remote control machines, robotics, being able to handle some of the more sort of human resource driven work in a more remote control way using technology, the screening of site, be it with drones, satellite technology to gain quick surveying information around the site for safety and otherwise reasons, and using infrared technologies to have a look under the ground for some of the archaeology work that may need to be done. Recycling the sustainability of materials is another big challenge, to not leave a footprint on site, take those materials away and dispose of them properly and compliantly to industry standards. and the evolution of the workforce. I read a statistic that the average age for excavator drivers was 52, which is therefore not too far off retirement age for some of these drivers. Now, if they were to leave in a big wave, it does leave a big hole for the industry to fill for sure. And that is certainly a challenge in regards to recruitment going forward. But the common challenges faced, we're still going through COVID-19 issues at present, having to remain compliant on site, having to handle and deal with certain breakouts of COVID and people having to isolate in numbers from certain sites is still an issue that is hampering certain construction projects. And the uncertainty of Brexit that's kind of been put on hold for now. But when that starts to be readdressed and become top of the government's agenda, I'm sure it's going to make certain projects and schemes uncertain for certain people. The knock-on effect, of course, will hit the demolition sector. I think there's far more competition for less work, although the previous statistic is highlighting there is more work in and across the industry. It is highly competitive to win it. And I think people are starting to have to diversify the sort of projects they're involved in to win that work. Therefore, lack of materials is preventing projects from going ahead. Less budget available, fees are dropping, people are basically wanting more for less money. So hitting demolition companies are having to diversify the type of work they're doing, getting paid less and being expected to deliver more, which is not a healthy place to be, of course, in the sector. You want it to be far more specialist and start getting paid for what you're doing at the correct rates, because these problems are all sort of what was feeding that previous statistic around, although there is an increase in work, profit margins are dropping. And that is sort of down to a lot of these challenges. So, three issues that we've identified that is particularly hurting the industry is that diversification of type of work people have to be involved in to win the work. This can be outside of certain companies' comfort zone and their employees' skill set. Therefore, do some of these bits of work get done to the right standard? Are there mistakes made because people aren't necessarily skilled in that element of the industry? It has a knock-on effect, particularly being able to track and allocate machinery, managing your resources effectively, managing your assets effectively, all again has a big knock-on effect, particularly around, asset management, the scheduling issue around poor allocation of machinery that's sitting on other sites not doing anything for weeks is all costing companies money. So, having tools in place where these resources can all be tracked and better utilised will hopefully also drive profits to increase on certain jobs. And meeting the compliancy levels within the industry, particularly around health and safety reporting, the compliance standards and processes that must be met and worked through, and particularly capturing that data on site. And sort of the middle column there is highlighting some of the issues or the challenges faced. And on the right there is functionality offered by software to address those issues. But if we take this slide one step further, the issue with too many diverse projects, if we could standardize the way projects operate, if we could share best practices and a far more joined up approach to projects with a level of automation, that's exactly what Archdesk sort of exists to provide, particularly around the project process, the automation of notification and informing teams and providing them with all the information that they need to be successful with that particular step or stage of the project is a big thing that we can offer businesses. So issue number two, the control over assets and resources. Well, asset management, scheduling and sort of project management tools embedded within our software is key to help give you the control and management of those assets across all your projects. Start to utilize your resources better. Make sure you've got the right people on the right tasks, on the right job, which will gain better outcomes. Suddenly less mistakes are made, less returns to site are required, or delays, which all eat into profit margins. And I think that's where we're at the moment with this sector. It's all about trying to raise those profit margins on jobs to make them sort of worthwhile taking on some of the jobs that are out there at the moment. Health and safety compliance is another big thing, and that's obviously driven through document management, making sure data is collected on site correctly and in total, so it needs accurate reporting. And we can provide digital forms and various processes to drive those through, and workflows through approval to make sure that all that health and safety work is monitored, recorded, and reported on correctly. So, from these challenges, the knock-on effect is certainly our system is set up very much to help you meet those challenges and start to eradicate some of the common problems. And as I said, as an overall thing, it seems the industry just wants to start driving profit margins up and have better outcomes on the projects. So how does Archdesk do all this? Well, we've broken our solution down ultimately into lots of little mini building block solutions. And what we will do, we will discuss with the demolition companies that we've worked with in the past or are working with now to really identify what building blocks from all our solutions are going to be key for them as a business. What do they need from us to be able to build a system that's going to be most effective to drive their business forward? So we will have many discussions around what their requirements are and truly understand their issues and problems faced with how they're managing information, people, projects, and the business as a whole. And we'll identify which building blocks they're going to require and also which bits they're not going to require, and take those out the conversation. And let's focus on building the best system we can out of the bits they need. So just to move into the presentation now, I'm going to be logging into the system via Google Chrome here, but we can provide you access to the system on both Mac and PC, and we've also got apps built for iOS and Android devices that are available in the Apple Store and Play Store. So I've just logged into our platform here, and this is what we call the dashboard reporting area for the system. Now, these dashboard reports will all be built for your specification as business to report into you and your teams and your company-wide information key to support you in your role. So for those perhaps leading businesses at higher levels, this is an inquiry dashboard measuring the leads coming into the business or potential work to win and lose. You can see the inquiries currently being managed and some of the metrics around their value and who's responsible for them and where they currently sit in their process. Coming down, we can have a look at an inquiry map and actually start to see where these inquiries are on a map view, and we can go down and see which projects we've won and lost year to date, month to date, or whatever those timeframe metrics need to be. Other dashboards we can create can be based around the contracts that you're actually you have live trying to win, or what quotes you've provided customers that you're awaiting their approval on, and what quotes have been accepted by clients recently as well that now need processing. So we can also look at the jobs that are at pre-demolition stage or live on site at any one time and provide you with full financial view of how the company's operating. So we can see from all the projects that you've been managing over a period of time, whether they've been profitable, whether they've been successful from your metrics, and lots of other dashboards to support other teams, such as keeping a view of invoices and making sure they are being processed correctly, making sure they're being paid by your financial teams, as well as due accounts. Most important, one of the big issues is late payment. You know, the big scramble to do all the work on site and get the project through to project end. Often, therefore, making sure you're getting paid for this work ends up an afterthought. And I've heard companies 6 months, 12 months later down the line having to chase up payments with companies. And it can get into big disputes over companies suggesting certain work's been missed and not having the relevant documentation to prove otherwise. And there's a big argument over what that final payment or late payment should be. Obviously, systems like ours, and particularly this dashboard, is giving you a view of all the creditors, the values, who's responsible for it, how many invoices are currently sat with them, who the debtors are as well. So you can completely keep track of this. You can also embed auto notifications at certain points in the project to poke the right person to chase that payment up and make sure you get paid for the projects and the work that you've delivered. Quite a key thing that software like ours does. It's all about streamlining what would otherwise be a long-winded task and making sure things don't get missed, which in the world of construction, sadly, many things do. Dashboards for purchasing, keeping track of procurement of materials, procurement, labour contracts, everything else that money that's obviously going out of the business, making sure that you're paying on time and paying effectively. So dashboard reports are pretty key for the use of our platform. It's a big benefit to anybody that decides to work with Archdesk. It really does provide you the tools to gain the insight and overview of how your business is operating, where things are going right and wrong, and ultimately bring all this data and information to your fingertips rather than you have to dig around in your current filing systems or spreadsheets and have to try and pull this data together yourselves. It's something that we're really strong at, particularly on real-time reporting. It's giving you a real-time view of how things are operating across the business, and not in hindsight. So moving into a project, let's give you a view of how we can start to manage your assets and resources. So clicking on the Satterfield Corner House project here, it's taken me now into a project called the Satterfield Corner House project, and you can see down the left-hand side a load of functionality and features have appeared that are all project related. So this page is actually the details of the project. It's got some of the site addresses. It's got some key referenceable information there against what type of project this is, the approximate value of the project and some of the key contacts. And it's also got a link to regularly referenced documentation, such as the contract here. So quite a useful page as you work throughout the project. We'd expect this list to grow as the project does too in data. Moving down to the processes page, this is something mentioned earlier in the slide deck, but this is quite key to giving you control over how your projects operate. We can start to standardize, we can start to give you control, we can start to automate a lot of your processes. So when it gets to certain stages of project, like let's say heavy asset call, the right people are informed of their responsibilities to carry out the task to complete this particular step of the project. You can see that forms will be attached to them for their completion, a list of tasks for them to work through on site and complete, and supporting documentation to help them with that work as well. So the system can also highlight how far this task's been completed, which tasks are still open, which yet hasn't been complete. So we can now track progress in real time of how this is performing and make sure nothing gets missed, which is key. So this really is now starting to give you control out how your projects, resources, tracking your assets, making sure the right information is being used, and start to really drive your projects forward to success. We can also put different approval gates in between these steps if they need somebody to say, approve the work before you allow the project to continue. So lots of options in here. This is something very consultant led by us during the implementation phase of working with Archdesk. We really understand your business, project protocols and processes, and hopefully build you a solution that's going to suit and drive all these efficiencies and benefits I've just mentioned. Moving down to, let's say, the program of works now. Now, project management, tracking everything that's going on in your projects, all the tasks, your resources, your people, your machinery, and scheduling all these tasks and things is something that is particularly challenging with business that are trying to do this manually, perhaps on several spreadsheets owned by several different people across the business. Now, we want to try and bring all that data and all that information into one space and give you clear overview, visibility of the information that's key for you to start managing this program or project. So you can see from the program of works here, we've got a Gantt chart view on the right. For you to really get into the scheduling and management of this to real-time diary, you can set milestones, and from these different tasks, if I just click in here, we can now see the time frame that's been allowed for this particular installation of temporary power, fire and lighting emergency provisions. We can see where it's currently staged and the progress of this particular task. We can also see there's been some digital forms attached to this stage that must be filled in by those and complete on site. You can see in this column here how far this has been complete, all the tasks here, and in the resources area we can now see if there's, say, vans or machinery that's been attached to it, and the resources and teams of people that have been assigned. So this is now really starting to be able to build up the detail around planning, making sure your projects flow right, making sure everybody's got everything they need to complete these tasks as effectively as we can to the right schedule. Now, this is obviously more of a planning, project management, but if we want a company-wide view of your resources, if I just click on the schedule button right at the top here, this will now take me into a view of the members of staff across this particular business. And I can see, excuse me, if I just jump back here, where some of these resources have been assigned. So I can see if I perhaps zoom out on this view, give me more of a monthly view of where people are. I can start to see now where my teams have been assigned, what projects they're working on, how long they've got on those projects, and I can start to make sure that the right resources are being assigned to the right project task. Now, I might want to click on Alistair Spencer here and get a view of him and his speciality. So I would just click on the company tab, go into the list of my employees, click on Alistair Spencer, and I now have a profile around him and his specialisms, perhaps his qualifications, what equipment he can machine and drive and operate, whether he's got a health and safety certificate that's perhaps needs updating, or any licenses, etc., etc. So when I jump back to the scheduling page now, I've got a far clearer picture of what Alistair Spencer can bring to the projects that I have in hand. So if I just double click in here and let's say apply a project task, I can select the project this is going to sit with and the program of works that it will belong to. and let's say this is dismantling scaffolding. He's going to need a van for this piece of work and the labour costs, and I can also notify him once this has been assigned. Now, the important thing here in regards to resource and asset management is I can assign the right people to the right task, and I can keep track of where they are and make sure they move around between the right jobs and really give me a way to schedule my people effectively, as well as assets. So we can also flip between our human resources and our assets, and we can filter those by type of asset as well. And we can start to assign vehicles, machinery, equipment that might be on hire, or anything else that you may have to manage as a company asset in exactly the same way. Make sure it's being utilized, make sure it's not sitting on site for weeks at a time, not being used when it could be utilized elsewhere. So it's a much better use of not just your people's time, but also your assets' time. And again, if I just click on the company tab there and go into assets, I've now also got detail around all of these. So if I click on, let's say, this particular excavator, what I could also do is say, okay, well, I can see here that it's, let's say it needs its MOT done or a service in a couple of months' time. I don't want to forget that. So what I'll do is actually add a to-do to this task. Assign it to that particular person that's responsible for setting up the service, give them a due by date of when the service must be done by, let's say the end of November, and I will give them a poke mid-October to say, can you make sure we arrange for this vehicle to have a service, etc., etc. So the system can be used not only for the planning of the projects. As I mentioned, we can set up an awful lot of how the project flows and automates using this processes area of it. So as a first point, when this project was opened, whoever opened it would have selected the right type of project to fit the project in hand. And therefore, we can build several different templates of this process to suit the different projects you're working in. Once you've selected the right template, you can start to build your program of works. You can start making your planning, assigning the right resources, making sure they've got the tools they need to be successful at the different stages of this project. And then moving into the scheduler, company-wide view now of your resources and assets, and making sure they're all being used effectively, making sure they're assigned to the right project and no one's sitting around wasting time, no machinery sat on site costing you money. And we can track all that as well, or your people using timesheets. So not only is it assigning them, we can now track them, make sure from a sort of salary and payment perspective, we can get them to actually start to add their time sheets. And the way they would do that is utilizing the mobile application, logging in, logging out from site. Those logins and logouts or clock in, clock outs will be GPS pinpointed of where they clocked in and clocked out. And the time they accumulate on site will start to drive reports that can then feed into actually paying salaries based on their hours. So we're focused there on a bit of a story of managing people on site, and when tasks are assigned to individuals, they'll also be updated via the mobile application. Now, we haven't touched upon managing the financials of this project. We can manage the initial costings, quotations, bill of quants, bill of materials, and take those through the whole journey that they need to within your business. So from the purchase orders that are raised to the purchase invoices that will need to be raised can all be done within our system. And everything's trackable, traceable, every cost for the project in real time, all gets fed back into this financial dashboard for the project. So now we've got a very high level view of all of these costs. We've also got a breakdown of every project cost against different categories. They'll highlight in red if they've gone over the budget that's been assigned for them. We can drill down into those costs and find out why we've overspent in areas of this project. And all of this data can help inform businesses like yourselves on how to cost up jobs more accurately in the future. If you've got a very similar job coming up and you've hugely overspent on certain, like even fuel, for example, here, petrol. If you've massively overspent in certain cost categories, then you'll know to adjust it going forward and start making your projects costings more accurate at the offset. And then that can feed through all your planning, all your project management, and hopefully at the end, which is the ultimate goal, is the project outcome is coming in far more profitable than it has been. So there's an awful lot we can do in regards to finances, keeping track of all these, driving you to get your payments made by your clients, keeping clients informed of any change, also for some paying your subcontractors, making sure that their work's being measured on site, to schedules of rates if need be, and sort of to the contract that's been agreed for their work or subcontractors. We can manage expenses as well. We can digitize your budget sheet and you can manage that in here. So it's a very strong solution in regards to managing all the project and financials, but then bringing it all back together in the beginning when I showed you dashboards, pulling all that data from all your projects and giving you this picture of how your whole company's operating. Now that's fairly unique for companies in our space to be able to do that. A lot of systems like these are very project focused. We're able to provide you both, not just get into the real detail of how your projects are operating, but also feed all that data into a company-wide view. See how your company's operating, see which projects were successful and which ones weren't, which ones were profitable, which ones weren't, where things went right, where things went wrong. Maybe it was an initial, the costings for that job were way out. Maybe you've been using the wrong people on the wrong tasks. This is what systems like ours is here to do. And I've only touched upon a few parts of the system today because the next step really for you as a business would be to get in touch with us. We can sit down with you and discuss your business, what you need, how you operate, how your processes work, how your workflows go, who's involved in different stages of your projects, what sort of projects you're involved in, what the nuances are between them, and really get a flavour for how your business is currently operating, but more importantly, where you want to go as a business. And we want to go along that ride with you, and we want to be the system that helps you get there. So if it's growth, if it's more prestigious projects you want to start winning, if you want to become more profitable, if you want to increase your reputation by starting to deliver projects on time and to the standard that is expected, system like ours at Archdesk, this is what we specialize in. This is what we're doing for other demolition companies. We're driving their businesses forward. We're starting to eradicate the mistakes that are being made. We're starting to get their projects being delivered in a far more profitable state than they currently have been. And that's because there's less errors, there's less delays, unnecessary delays. We're meeting compliancy levels for the health and safety needs on site with confidence through our system. People are well informed across the whole project, and the relationship between the office and site is being managed through our mobile application. So everybody on site is well informed of what they need to do in a very simplistic app that they're easily able to grasp and utilize. So you don't have to be particularly computer literate to be able to use our app on site and receive information and feed information back into the office. So I'd suggest you get in touch after this if you're interested in knowing more. One of our consultants would be very glad to sit down with you and have a conversation, find out how we might be able to help, and then perhaps we can then look to, in the future, give you a far more focused demonstration of the system to your real problems, needs, requirements as a business, and we can really show you how we can start to address those and make a huge difference to how your company's operating. So thanks for your time today. I hope it's been informative. Again, please refer to the emails and correspondence you've been given. I'm sure we'll be in touch after this webinar to give you the opportunity to get in touch and, as I said, have a chat with one of our guys about how we can also benefit your business. Thanks for your time today, and have a great rest of your week. Okay, thank you very much.